everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to my studio. Well, in today's video, I want to talk about another shooting mode, and that is shutter priority. Now, this one's a little bit confusing because on Canon cameras, it's actually TV. On Nikon cameras, it's actually either SV or S, but it stands for all the same thing, and that's shutter priority. So let's first of all go through what shutter priority is. Then we'll go through where it will work and when it won't work. Shutter priority is exactly what it sounds like. You're setting the shutter speed to be what you want it at, and the camera will work around that. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's when you want a specific shutter speed and you don't want the camera to vary it, whether you want a slow shutter speed or whether you want a super fast shutter speed. That's the good news. The bad news is that like many other modes, there are certain times when this mode does not work and will cause you a lot of problems. So let's go through what the problems are. With shutter priority, when you use it, you can actually tell the camera to do something that it cannot possibly do to get you a proper exposure. What do I mean by that? Perfect example. A number of years ago, I had a lady come in here with a digital file or several digital files that she shot at her daughter's graduation. She had set her camera at 500th of a second, and she had the ISO at 100. Unfortunately, the church that her daughter graduated in was dark, so her camera opened up the aperture as much as it could to get her the picture that she wanted. The problem was it could only open up so far, so the pictures were underexposed. Nothing the camera could do about it. The camera did everything it could do. So using shutter priority, you can actually tell the camera to do something that it's not capable of doing. So to explain a little bit more, I'm going to talk about exposure, how a camera sets the exposure. Camera has three things that it can do to set your exposure. It can set your shutter speed, it can set your aperture, and if you let it, it can set the ISO. Or you can go in and change any one of those things or multiples of those things so that the camera cannot set it. A lot of times when people set their camera to shutter priority, they'll set the shutter speed that they want, but they've also set the ISO to what they thought it should be set at. So the camera only has one thing it can do to expose the picture properly. It either opens up the aperture more or it closes down the aperture to smaller to let more or less light in. Well, guess what? In this situation, this lady had her ISO set to 100 and the camera couldn't adjust that. She had her shutter speed set, so the camera couldn't adjust that. So the camera tried opening up the aperture as much as it could, and it just couldn't open it anymore. So the pictures were underexposed. That's a problem when using shutter priority. Now, should you use auto ISO with shutter priority? That's up to you. I, in most cases, don't like it because I like shutter priority to give me more control, and if I'm allowing it to use auto ISO, it gives me less control. But I have used it, and yes, it does work. So when would you use shutter priority over the other modes? Well, if you want to shoot super fast and you've set your ISO correctly, that's a perfect time. If you don't mind what the aperture is, setting your shutter speed to the super fast speed, setting your ISO to where you want it, the camera will make adjustments for the variance in lighting conditions. That's what it's good for. Sports, baseball, soccer, even hockey inside, as long as you've set your ISO up high enough. If it's in a darker spot of the arena or a lighter spot, if the sun's behind a cloud or if the sun's out, whatever the situation that changes, the camera will use the aperture to get you a good picture. It works, and it works well. The problem with shutter priority, the biggest problem is shooting stuff at night. I don't like shooting stuff at night with shutter priority as my main way of shooting because it tends to overexpose stuff. There are better modes, but people do use it for that. Another thing that people use it for is shooting waterfalls when they want to show motion. They'll adjust the shutter speed really slow. The camera will adjust the aperture accordingly, the ISO if you let it, and you can show motion in waterfall pictures. It works good for that. So shutter priority has purposes. Shutter priority works in certain situations, but there are limitations. So please, I strongly recommend in all modes, if you're changing the way you use your camera, that you don't go and just change it today and go from here on in, that you learn to use it before you need to use it. Take it, go outside, take some pictures, learn inside, shoot some pictures, see what the limitations are, see what works, see what doesn't work before you start using it for anything, for yourself or especially for a client. So until next time, get out there, take some amazing pictures. In the next video, we're going to talk about aperture priority, and we'll explain where that works and where that doesn't work. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.